Welcome into the party on Broad on Edge of Philly Sports. I'm Freddie Burns with Chris Dives and Sean Barnard, Sixers expert, Pick Swap Media, Fox 102.5, The Gambler. Get them on iHeartRadio as well. And boy, do we have an exciting show for you tonight. Well, I don't know, because it's kind of the eggshell conversation. It's the elephant in the room, the one asset the Sixers have that they can trade without blowing it up. And we're going to sadly get into options of trading Tyrese Maxey tonight. We're also talking some of the rumors. Bradley Beal, Shams, as well as Woj has reported that the trade talks are underway with Beal. We'll get into that. I'm sure he'll be in some of our proposals. But let's kick this off with the first trade. We're going to go to Dives. Dives has a 3-team trade. Give it to us, Dives.
All right. So first trade up. Let's get into it. I think we can all agree as this kind of James Harden process continues, it's more and more likely that he's coming back to Philadelphia, which makes this trade kind of more likely. The Sixers are getting Jaylen Brown. This deal also includes the Washington Wizards, of course. The Celtics are getting Bradley Beal to go with Jason Tatum. And the Wizards are getting Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris, an expiring contract and a young piece to build around who's due a super max probably, or a max at some point. But you look at Jaylen Brown, man, achieved career high in points per game, rebounds per game, field goal percentage, free throw percentage in 2023. He also tied a career high in assists per game. This guy's evolved into a mid-range assassin with improved handles, poised to play under control, play in clutch moments. In the playoffs, he took 5.7 threes per game, hit 35% of them, but really struggled in game 6 and 7 against the Heat, 1 of 13 from 3. So got to take that into account. What are your thoughts on Jaylen Brown to the Sixers?
Sean, I'll let you go first. I don't know how you can't have bad thoughts about it, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a Jaylen Brown guy for a long time. I will say that this playoff run was not one that made me particularly excited about him. The dribbles, the 8 turnovers in game 7, that was a huge sign of concern. But that's also the only reason that you might have a chance at him, that all these guys, good players, don't just become available. So you have to take some sort of risk. So maybe buying the dip and making sure that's the case is the best outlook. I do think that there's a little brewing rift between the Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum combo in Boston. I think they might just be too similar to fully bring out the best in each other. So if he does shake loose, I would be happy to have him. He's been a guy that I've liked for a long time. I think he'd be a great compliment to Joel Embiid. These Sixers have not had a true wing style of player like Jaylen Brown really ever. So it would be a nice addition. I would love it. And he's a guy that I have in one of my deals as well.
He's a top 15 guy, in my opinion. He's like the guy. He's like the guy, in my opinion, when it comes to a Maxey deal. It starts and ends with Jaylen Brown. I love that guy. It sucked watching him carve up the Philadelphia 76ers. What he does as a two-way wing is awesome, man. I think this is also a guy that's been getting better and better and better. Minus game 6 and 7 against the Heat. He has been improving like crazy.
Anytime you can, as much as I love Maxey, if you're going to give up Tobias Harris and Maxey and then your return is Jaylen Brown, you have to do it. It's the wing we've been dying to have for years. But not only that, the Celtics, I think, weakened themselves with this trade by acquiring Bradley Beal, who was a good player at one time, still probably is a good player, but, we'll get into him more. But he hasn't played as many games. He's been injured a lot. I think it definitely softened the Boston Celtics. The next trade we're going to get into is your trade, Sean. I'm going to pull it up now if you want to explain it. The Sixers not only get Jaylen Brown, they get Dame Lillard as well. How does that work?
Yeah, so this is the most all-in and probably the craziest trade I come up with here. So Dame Lillard and Jaylen Brown, I feel like two of the most common names out here. This is a 3-team trade between the Sixers, Celtics, and Trailblazers. Sixers, of course, walk away with Dame Lillard and Jaylen Brown, just as all-in as you can get. To make that work, the Trailblazers will get a rebuilding package built around Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, Jaden Springer, Robert Williams, a 2029 first-round pick, a 2029 second, a pick swap in 2026, and a 2024 second. So a ton of draft picks there. Most of those coming from the Sixers, 1 pick swap from the Celtics. The Celtics also walk away with Anthony Simons, DeAnthony Melton, Furkan Korkmaz, and 3 pick swaps via the Sixers. So a whole bunch of moving parts here for the Celtics. They get a little younger. They get a little cheaper by adding Anthony Simons, who I truly believe is an intriguing young talent. There's a ton of guards in Portland that I think they'd be willing to part with it. This gives these Sixers a true win now package by adding both of them. This is shortening the window to win, but it gives them the best top end talent that you really can get in any way. So this is certainly a swing for the fences, but if they can find a way to pull it off, it'd be hard to turn it down.
This trade, trying to pull it off. Hold on. Yeah, this trade is an NBA title for the Philadelphia 76ers. No doubt about it. And everyone knows who Dame Lillard and Jaylen Brown is. Obviously, the only question I have is this. I don't think the Boston Celtics would even consider doing this because then they're kind of – I guess Anthony Simons, you do like him, but I just don't see them moving on from – I feel like they can get a better package for Brown. Dives, what do you think about this trade?
I don't think the Celtics moving or trading Jaylen Brown is that crazy. I definitely think that's definitely in the realm of possibility. I mean, what is the major goal of this offseason is to convince Joel Embiid to kind of take a step back when it comes to offensive production minutes on the court, all that kind of stuff. But, you know, when you talk about it, like having a guy like Dame and Jaylen that can take over at a whim, on a whim, wow, what a win-win for the Sixers. I would do, of course, do this trade, but I don't know how possible it is.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to point out, too, with so many of these trades, more so than last year, is there is a financial aspect that is coming to play with the new CBA. The Celtics specifically are a team that I think are going to be looking to get off money. Both Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown were All-NBA guys this year, so both eligible for $200 million plus max extensions there. That puts you in some rough spots when it comes to salary. And even in the Bradley Beal conversation, when we get into that, a Bradley Beal and Joel Embiid pairing, that's over 70% of the cap right there. So if the Celtics are not confident in that being their long-term duo, it makes sense to go younger, get Anthony Simons, who has a little something like that, a guy that I still would consider a building block and a possible blossoming star. So it's definitely not one that I think is the most likely in the world, but I don't think it's out of the question completely.
You bring up a good point with the cap, because that is a huge point, Sean. All teams via these trades are going to be cap strong at that point. And the cap didn't move up this year either as anticipated, which makes that even a bigger deal, because if it doesn't go up any further, that 70% is going to grow and so on. So great point there.
And that's also the reason why Tobias Harris, for the first time in his career, is a positive trade asset, that a team looks at him and say, okay, I'll take Tobias Harris for 1 year and basically get $40 million off my books. So he's pretty much attached in all of these trades for me and for most of us. I think Daryl Morey is going to have a lot to work with that teams that are looking for that cap relief can swallow Tobias Harris for a year, because he's not a liability to the point where you don't want him on your roster that much. To get that financial freedom and take him for one season, it's kind of worth it. So I think that's something to keep in mind.
Tyrese Maxey good. Sorry.
I was saying June 14, 2023, probably the first time Tobias Harris's contract has been given a compliment. Just throwing that out there.
He's $4.3 million for this guy. That's what the contract is. That's amazing. And like you said, getting Harris, it's almost a wash because you're getting that caliber player in Maxey. Mm-hmm. Now let's jump into my trade. And I want to preface this by saying I do not want to trade Maxey in any trade whatsoever. But we have to, and I'm sure you guys don't either. We love him, but we have to understand that he is the only asset we have, and it's definitely conversations that Daryl Morey is having. So if we are going to trade him, I want a star, and a star only, and that star is Dame Lillard. In my trade, the Trailblazers are obviously at this point trying to go into a rebuild, use their picks, so they would then send Dame Lillard to the Sixers. I also know, let's call it from a little birdie that I know, that this deal is actually on the table within the organization. But so the Sixers would get Dame, the Blazers would then get Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, Furkan Korkmaz, a 2029 first-round pick unprotected, a 2024 second-round pick, and a 2027 second-round pick. Likely they would have to add in more picks or find a third team. I think this is a win-now move for the Sixers. You get Dame Lillard. What's he averaging career? 32.2 points last year, career 25.2 player, just a gamer, a guy that with the game on the line, and we see it year after year on this team, we always don't know who's going to shoot. We saw glimpses of Harden being that guy in 2 games in the playoffs, but we have a guy that we know, win or lose, is going to take the ball, demand the ball, and make shots. My only concern is his health. So Dame has been injured in these last few years as well. He started out in the beginning of his career pretty hot, playing 82 games the first 2 seasons, but the last 2, he had a abdominal issue 2 years ago, only played 29 games, and then a calf injury this year that knocked him out. So he only had 55 games. So injuries are a concern. I'll go with you, Dives. Your thoughts on the trade?
I mean, what else is there to be said? I mean, Damian Lillard, you look at kind of what is he, like 32 years old? He at the rim, he had, a career high shooting wise, 67.1. So that's good to see that his attacking, his ability to kind of finish through contact in the paint is only getting better. There's a guy that also tallied career highs in 3-point shooting. The Sixers absolutely must increase their volume from the perimeter. That is a must. And as we said, previously on past shows, Joel Embiid has to take a lesser role on offense, bringing in a guy like Dame Lillard, a guy that can take over. Let's be honest, Joel Embiid loses his legs consistently through data in the fourth quarters, in the playoffs, every single time. And having a guy like Dame that can take over in clutch situations, you got to love it, man. I love Dame Lillard, and I think this would be a no-brainer.
Sean, how do you think this trade fits? We had them both, just Dame Lillard with the offense. Like, does Harden stay? Would he come back and play more of a shooting guard role? How would that work?
Yeah, and it's interesting. The James Harden piece is the biggest X factor in this, and that the outlook and which deals are most likely and what these Sixers outlook are all pretty significantly altered by whether he's back or not. I do think Dame Lillard can play with James Harden. I also think he can certainly play without him, and the offense would look much different. There would not be as much 2-man action between Dame Lillard and Joel Embiid as we saw with James Harden and Joel Embiid, but there's still something that would be positive about that, of having a guy that can just go get it himself, call his own buckets, things like that. So in a world, I do think that they can play with each other and without. I don't know. I think the Sixers would probably lean toward not Dame and look more in the wing direction, that if James Harden does stay. Dame has personally slid down my list a little bit just because of the injury concerns, the age, and just further shrinking that window. But, I mean, he's proven that he can do it in the playoffs, that he can do it in the big moments, and there's plenty to like about him, so I certainly get it.
From the logo, as they say. Dive, let me ask you this on Dame, because it's souring me. It seems like he's a little fraudulent to me. He used to play this, like, I'm not going to be a star, go to a, like, team up with stars guy, like all this stuff. And now suddenly he's like on all these shows talking about all these teams he's going to. He's chirping on Twitter at Embiid when he's like taking excerpts. No, when Embiid had the comments about him and Harden can't be the only ones, he retweeted that, talking crap, saying like, oh, well, I'm not going to go to the Heat if they win the championship, but if they don't, then he would consider it. I'm souring on him a little bit. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it screams a little, fake kind of, personality. I haven't heard that. I remember him being very vivid about wanting to build it in Portland when all the rumors have been going around in previous seasons. But that's kind of weird. That's definitely a little weird. I'm going to look into that, though. I did not hear that.
Yeah, that's made me sour on him a little bit as well. And I do think the Trailblazers are at a point where there's going to be a decision made one way or another, that they either package their load of young talent, which they do have guys. They have Anthony Simons, they have Shaedon Sharpe, they have that number 3 pick or number 2 pick, 3 pick, or 3 pick. Yeah, I think. But either way, they have
Trailblazers. 3,
yeah. So they have assets, they have things can package. I think the decision is either you load up those guys and get a win now player to try and compete with Dame, or you ship off Dame and start building this young core, which frankly I think would be the right decision for them. I think they've honestly delayed it a couple years too late, and I think now more than ever it is likely that Dame does get moved. But I agree, he has switched tunes a little too much for me.
Quentin Moore checking in. When will we know if Harden is staying? Do we know the answer to that? Does he have a timeline? It's rumored he was opting out, but now it's rumored he might be coming back in.
Yeah, so June 29th is the player option deadline. That regardless is pretty thought of that he will decline that, and the expectation is that. As far as him making an actual free agent decision, that we're more on James Harden's timeline of what he decides for that. So I guess June 29th is the short answer, but the expectation should be decline whatever. And as far as in terms of what his decision is for next year, we kind of just got to sit this one out.
That's like the first domino, man. That's brutal, man. So much depends on that.
2 weeks, guys. 2 weeks, guys. It's not the end of the world. Yeah, like it's 3 months. It's like it's the 14th today. But anyhow,
we've been at this the last like 2 weeks, and these 2 weeks have been like an eternity.
Get into some Eagles OTAs. Take a little breath.
They don't even have OTAs. They don't even have minicamp. Come on, man. You got nothing else to talk about.
Well, let's jump into trade 4, and it's Dives trade. We go to the Nick Nurse camp. We go back to Raptor land.
Yes. All right, let's do it. All right. In this trade, the Sixers are receiving OG Anunoby and Gary Trent Jr. The Raptors are receiving Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris. Pretty clean trade. I think Gary Trent Jr. has some looming decisions to make about what he's going to decide. But let's get into it. OG Anunoby, one of my favorite players in the league, best fits for the Sixers, period. NBA steals leader, scored the most points he's ever had in a season with over 1,100 total. Also ended the season with career highs in blocks, assists, and free throw percentage, man. This is a guy who's improved exponentially with his handle over the years. He's kind of been one of the guys under Nick Nurse when it comes to positionless basketball. He's not a point guard by any means, but he's a guy that can bring up the basketball. You can kind of run things through him, and he can shoot really well, which is important because, you know, how many ball handlers are on the Sixers? He's got size to kind of be a threat under the basket, be a lob threat, and cut when needed. He's also got the size that when he drives, like, just swallows up defenders at will. You look at Gary Trent Jr., man, I think this guy is just super underrated, man. I think Sean had him in our Tobias trade show. But a little bit more on Gary Trent Jr. Last year, there were only 3 players under the age of 25 that averaged at least 17 points, shot better than 36.5% from 3, and had at least 1.5 steals. That included Anthony Edwards, Tyrese Halliburton, and Gary Trent Jr. 2 of those were all-stars. His offensive efficiency dipped a little bit in 2023, but I think this dude is an underrated scorer. You add a wing and OJ. Oh my God. OG Anunoby. And I think these are 2 guys that fit Nick Nurse to a T. That's my thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and 2 Toronto guys. So there is the Nick Nurse experience there. There's the familiarity. OG, you just don't find these guys, these true 3-and-D wing style of players, that they just don't become that available. OG is that, and he is a true version of that. I'm curious what his market is. For a while, I thought he was one of the more underrated guys around the NBA, and then when the trade market started to swirl with him last year, there were some astronomical price tags being attached, talking about 5 first-round picks and things like that. He's not that caliber of player, so with something like that, I'd be hanging up the phone on that one. But if this trade could go through, that's something that I would have a hard time turning down, just from a stylistic and player fit. The Sixers need these types of guys, the two-way players, 3-and-D style wings. Both these guys are excellent fits for that, and yeah, that's what the Sixers are missing, and this would find a way to get them.
Oh, is that a yes? It sounds like a yes.
Probably, but it is hard for me to trade Maxey, and I think this James Harden thing is going to have to put everything into play for me. If James Harden stays, then it's like, then I probably do this. If James Harden doesn't, then I just don't see, you have to keep Maxey, I feel, because you have to keep that down the line option open.
Right.
This trade makes you think, Dives. It makes you think. It does. When I read it this morning, I'm like, and then I'm like, yeah, Anunoby's could be a budding superstar. His trajectory gets higher and higher. Second team all day. When did we have a 3-and-D player? We've been crying about it for years. This would do that deal. Before I say if I like this, though, I need to talk to my lawyer, and that lawyer is David R. Cherry, Esquire. Call David Cherry now. Call him 610-565-0300. Workers' compensation, motor vehicle accidents, criminal law, and personal injury. Call him today, the Cherry Firm PC. Call him today. Yeah, because I would be crossing Maxey. It would be personal injury, which is defamation, and then that's why I would need him. So the trade would fit perfect with, as you were kind of alluding to, Sean, Nick Nurse's system. This would get Nick Nurse guys in here immediately. My only concern is there bad blood between Gary Trent and Nick Nurse? Every time you hear about the Nick Nurse talking this and that about players publicly, they bring up the Gary Trent story and Gary Trent not finding out about what he was doing wrong except through the media, not from Nick Nurse directly. Could that possibly be resolved? Yes, but that's just my only concern with that trade. Jumping into trade 5 here, I believe this
one's me.
Go ahead, Sean.
All right, so another one where we're swinging for the fences, and Kawhi Leonard, when I talk about inconsistent play, injuries, he is all of that. But we've also seen him take over in a way that few guys are able to reach the peak on a basketball court, and it happened right in front of our very eyes with the ball bouncing all over the rim and falling to break all of our hearts here in Philadelphia. So looking at the trade as a whole, the Sixers do get Kawhi Leonard, Brandon Boston, BJ Boston, and Bones Highland. The Clippers come back with Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris making his return to Los Angeles, a 2029 first-round pick, and a 2026 first-rounder. The Clippers are another team in financial troubles that could look to benefit from the bringing on Tobias Harris, eating that money. The Kawhi Leonard and Paul George combo just has not clicked. They're two guys that are also too similar and also just have not been on the floor enough. So I think they might be looking at, finding a way to get off that. You bring in Tyrese Maxey, he's a young centerpiece. He brings some fun basketball. And then from the Sixers perspective, Kawhi Leonard is that wing style player that we're talking about. And he is a guy capable of absolutely carrying a team, taking over. In the moments where he has played, he's looked good. He is not like the Joel Embiid where we see where he misses time and it takes him some time to kick off the rust, get back to form. When Kawhi Leonard plays, he's a dominant player. It just doesn't happen all the time. So it would be frustrating watching the Sixers when you don't know who's playing on a night-to-night basis between Leonard and Embiid. But when they're there and at their peak, they're great. And looking beyond that, you do bring back a little bit of young talent. Bones Highland's a guy that I like a lot more than I think the perception of him is. We saw him get traded to Clippers for not a lot at the deadline. And BJ Boston is another style of player the Sixers really haven't had. He's just a bucket getter. He's just a hooper. He's a guy who can come off the bench and catch fire. And that's something that would be fun. He's a little bit of like the Lou Williams mold, not as talented as that, but another Kentucky guard that we'd be getting back in the process.
Kawhi Leonard, when he played in the playoffs this year before he got hurt again, the claw was back.
Yeah.
And this would be eerily similar to what Nick Nurse did to win his first championship. He would basically be doing the same thing. You get obviously Kawhi Leonard. The health continues to be a concern. And even there's stories from that season where he kind of overruled Nick Nurse a lot. I wonder if that would be an issue as well. Bones Highland and Brandon Boston, they both remind me of Lou Williams. Like you said, already said that, but I think both of them are just scoring guys, 6-men type that can come in, give you that scoring punch, and then get off the floor. Dibs, how you feel about this trade?
Like when you look at it on the surface, like trading for, basically a 1-year rental in Kawhi Leonard because he's got a player option in year 2 for a guy like Tyrese Maxey is crazy. But, the reality is I love Kawhi Leonard. I absolutely love that guy when he's on the court. I think this will upset a lot of season ticket holders because I don't know how much it's going to impact the regular season. I'm turning that off. This is a move that, makes the playoffs, the Sixers in the playoffs, a really dangerous team. It's kind of like the Lakers, kind of like limping into the playoffs. The back end of the Eastern Conference, and nobody wants to play them because Kawhi's healthy, Joel's healthy. They're kind of those wild cards. You never know what you're going to get. I love Bones Highland. If you want to go back, I did so much analysis on Bones Highland. He was like a top 3 target for the Sixers at the time. For me personally, really struggled this year, but I'm with Sean. I like the Lou Will comp, maybe a little like Jamal Crawford, Jordan out, something like that. Just lightning bucket getter off the bench, floor spacer that would be really good with Joel Embiid. I don't do this trade. I look every single possible way to move Tobias and pieces to get Kawhi in Philly. But I am more so like, I don't believe the Sixers can win with Joel Embiid and James Harden and Nick Nurse. But you put Kawhi in that mix, I think the odds of finding that magic in the 2024 playoffs there's something there. There's a little bit there.
Mm-hmm. And it's a high risk move. There's no doubt about it that Kawhi, like, you don't know what you're getting, but he just has that level when he is at his best. There is maybe 5 guys across the NBA that are better than him. And to take that on your team, to roll the dice and get that for one playoff run, it might be worth it. And if you win one championship, to me, it is. So that is kind of the gamble you take here. And I don't know. It's up to Daryl Morey to decide if it's worth it.
One thing to note, and Dive's got to give him credit. He brought it up to me earlier as I was thinking about a Kawhi trade. We were going back and forth. Is he has a player option after this, so this would be a rental likely. And we know Kawhi likes to be all drama about it and make a whole decision about where he's going to go. He didn't want to come here last time. It's likely he would be gone after 1 year. Before that 1 year, ticket sales would be through the roof. And you know where I can get those tickets? Sherry'sTickets.com. Greatest spot ever. You got sports, concert, theaters, great prices, no hidden fees. No fees at checkout. The price you see is the price you get. You can save 10% with the promo code EOP10. Go to Sherry'sTickets.com. Get some tickets today. One other thing about that trade is that I don't know if the Clippers are do it because they got to sell tickets too. They're about to buy a new arena in 2 years. So if Tobias Harris came back, that would show signs of, as Dive said, it would show signs of a rebuild. I think they would almost have to get Maxey for him to make this move because he has to sell tickets. You can't go buy a new arena and then not sell anything.
Mm-hmm.
This Nick, I fully agree, man. If like there's anything we need to learn, and maybe at the end I want to go into because we did this last week in terms of like blueprint for the Sixers, like my personal opinion, and it includes this, Nick, and maybe I'll just kind of repeat what I said, but this is everything when it comes to re-implementing, redoing a culture, a way to play basketball in Philadelphia, a Nick Nurse style of basketball that's wings, positionless, getting deflections, turning defense into offense. The Sixers haven't, to be honest, they haven't been good at that since Ben Simmons left. That's the reality, and that's what I need this team to get back to for me.
Mm-hmm. It's modern basketball. Those are the teams that win, is when they have those two-way guys that do more, and they just don't grow on trees. Like, as much as we search for them, it is hard to get them. So you do have to kind of go out and go get them. They don't just end up. You don't just get a flyer on them. They show. These are hard players to find, and the guys that are good at that make a whole lot of money. So this what the Sixers should be in the market for.
Well, maybe they shouldn't trade them for Zaire Smith and a first-round pick.
It's fair.
Oh my God! Don't get me started on that. That's another guy.
He's like the prime 3-and-D guy too. He's like
exactly.
Yeah.
He's almost like too good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got a wing for you. The D's not perfect, but I'll bring you a wing with my trade here. The Sixers acquire Brandon Ingram and Jose Alvarado in a 3-team trade. The Pelicans would get Tobias Harris, a 2023 draft pick number 2, which they would likely take Scoot Henderson, who they are rumored to be in love with. The Hornets would then get Tyrese Maxey, the 2024 first rounder, a 2023 14th pick from the Pelicans, as well as a 2024 draft pick from the Sixers, which is the second rounder, obviously, because they can't trade their 21st. Brandon Ingram, long forgotten guy in the Ben Simmons draft. Who to take, Ben or Ingram? You wonder how we would have shaken out if we would have took Brandon Ingram. He is just an elite scorer. He's king shot creator. He can play small forward and power forward, 6'8", 190 pounds. He's a little skinny. His defensive rating is a 114.2. But if you compare that to Tobias Harris, who would leave in the deal, who was a 113.7 last year, you're not losing that much. He averaged 24.7, 5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, or 5.8 assists. just a great scorer, a wingman that we could certainly use, and the versatility of moving him from small forward to power forward would definitely help the Sixers. The other guy who I like in this trade, his nickname actually, I think he would fit with Nick Nurse as far as his like picking ability, hustle, scrappy guy. He's up in your face. He's a pest. They call him Grand Theft Alvarado. Jose Alvarado. He's a 6 foot, 179-pound point guard. He can score a bit. He's had games this year, I think 26 games with 10 points or more. He had a 38-point game against the now defending champion Denver Nuggets. He's just a pesky type of player. He's going to get a ton of steals. He sneaks up behind players, makes plays. He kind of reminds me of TJ McConnell. He's a little smaller than TJ. The shot's not as good, but that would be a great trade for the Sixers. And then as far as the Pelicans go, they would get Scoot Henderson, and then the Charlotte Hornets would now have Tyrese Maxey with cap space to move forward, losing not with cap space. They would have Maxey as well as the 14th pick to move forward and some future assets to move forward from there. I stumbled through the end of that. Barnard, you first.
I actually like this trade, and I think this is one of the more likely ones that we spitballed there. The Pelicans, it feels like there's a lot in the works. We've seen the whispers of them wanting to get up to number 2, some frustrations with Zion, who hasn't been on the court. Brandon Ingram has quietly developed into a really talented and complete player, that he has some creation ability. He's extremely elite in the mid-range. He can get his own shot. He can play make a little bit. He's a way better passer than he's been given credit. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think that's what the Sixers are missing, are that type of guy that can take over, go create their own shot, and just go do it. That is Brandon Ingram, and I think he wants to be that guy. He has those signs of wanting to be a star and ascend to that level of player, which the Sixers are designing to get. Jose Alvarado would absolutely be loved by the city of Philadelphia for sure. He would be a fan favorite here, no doubt about it. And the Pelicans want to get Scoot Henderson. Scoot Henderson is really good. I think he kind of has gone underrated with the massive reputation of Victor Wembanyama and all that carries. Scoot Henderson is the truth, and I think this is one of the more likely deals. The Hornets would have to get involved as well, but I can see this one.
Dibes?
My only hesitancy is that Ingram's a high mid-range guy. It's like basically DeRozan, Durant, Brandon Ingram. That's not necessarily how I would picture the Sixers moving forward. That's just my take. But he's a terrific player. You can't deny that. Definitely concerns with his durability. I mean, missing 20 games every season since 2020, 2019. Doesn't play a lot. But he's a guy that is a bucket getter. Like we've said, he fits. I fully agree, Sean. I think Jose Alvarado would be like the new TJ McConnell here in Philly. I would. This is a trade that I would be upset with probably the night they make it, and then probably be convincing myself that it's okay.
Yeah. I could see
one of them ones where you talk yourself into it, and then by the time the season's set, you think you're like the greatest team ever type of thing.
I don't know about that, but
I don't know if I'm cutting out or you guys, but
yeah, I'm all right. So, can you hear us?
I think we're good now. Sorry, I don't know what happened there. You guys were like ahead of me, and it was like.
All right, I'm going to go into our next trade here. Is not a sexy trade. It's not involving major stars here. I fully expect to be flamed on this one, but it includes 2 wings from the Pelicans and a draft pick. What's a draft pick when it comes to the Philadelphia 76ers? Trey Murphy and Herb Jones and the number 23 pick in this year's draft. Let's get into it. Trey Murphy was one of my favorite players in that 2021 draft. One of my favorite players under 25, period. This is a guy who started 65 games in 2023. This year, that doubled his minutes, shot attempts, and points from his rookie season. He was really impressive with his efficiency. He was just the 3rd player in NBA history to shoot 60% from 2, 40% from 3, and 90% from the free throw line in his attempts this season, man. He's also the youngest player to accomplish this since He's 22 years old, man. That's nuts. He made over 200 3-point shots. Fourth time in Pelicans history a player's made more than 200 in a season. That includes Peja Stojakovic and CJ McCollum and others. Also brings elite perimeter defense. He was one of the forces that, kind of moved the Pelicans to become almost a top 5 defensive team in the NBA this year. Then you look at Herb Jones, made dramatic strides in that second half of the season. Kind of a below average prior All-Star break shooter, 28%, but really connected after that, 44% after the All-Star break from 3. Field goal percentage went up 44% to 52% as well. This is one of the best in terms of getting steals, one of the best in terms of drawing charges, right up there in the tops of the league. And defensively, this is also a guy in Herb Jones that's ready to break out. So I think he's also a guy that could be a really good two-way with Joel Embiid. So for me, let's talk about the Pelicans, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, and another draft pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually think this is one of the least likely that we've talked about here. I think this is one that the Pelicans are in love with these guys, and rightfully so. These are 2 of the 3-and-D players that we've talked about. Trey Murphy, already an elite shooter across the entire NBA, even at his age, a ridiculous athlete as well. Both guys that I think were draft crushes of both of ours and have lived up to it. So if they are dead set, if they strike out on Scoot Henderson, or are still in search of that primary guard, maybe Tyrese Maxey turns the tables for this. I don't think the Sixers could say no to this if this is on the table, but I do think the Pelicans are pretty dug in on building around these guys.
If I'm cutting out, just let me know. But I gotta say, I would hate this actual trade. I would be so angry if we gave up Tyrese Maxey for glorified role players, in my opinion. Now, Herb Jones has showed improvement and gotten better, but is he going to be anywhere near a Tyrese Maxey level type player?
Let me just counter that. Okay. I think Herb Jones has all NBA defensive potential. I think that's how good he is. And I think Trey Murphy is going to be, as he's projecting, to be one of the best 3-and-D wings in the NBA. So that I'm just going to throw that there.
And certainly that might fit Nick Nurse's, but I just don't know if that's definitely going to happen. So for me, if I'm going to trade Tyrese, I'll take those players on my team all day long. But if I'm going to trade Tyrese Maxey right now, given the work ethic he puts in and his trajectory, every year he gets a ton better. He could be, I think he's definitely an every year all-star. He could be a superstar at some point. I really need to bring a star back in that trade.
I low-key think like this is a move that if they were actually to do this and you bring James Harden back and Joel Embiid and trade Tobias for like cents on the dollar, like this could make them exponentially better under Nick Nurse. Like this would like move them so far ahead, just low-key, like Moneyball wise.
Yeah. You know what? You make a good point there, because then you look at the defense, as you're saying, with Joel Embiid. That does intrigue me a little more now, and it'll be more team basketball, obviously, as well.
Mm-hmm. And Trey Murphy, a 40.6% 3-point shooter on 6+ attempts per game, 14.5 point scorer. He's also a guy that has like that infectious energy, infectious work ethic. He's a grinder, and I think he would fit for sure. He's kind of a tweener in the 3 to 4. He can play a little bit of power forward when needed. So yeah, this would change the identity of the Sixers to significant. It isn't that superstar swing, but this does extend the life, and they are Nick Nurse guys for sure.
You would see Trey Murphy at the 2 with James Harden. You would see Herb Jones at the 4 with Joel Embiid. Like this would push that transition, that defense to offense, Nick Nurse style basketball, like times 10, I think, in the right direction.
And you say identity, Sean. We haven't had identity since, I don't even think we had an identity with Brett Brown really either, because when's the last time we had a legit identity? So great point there as well. Let's jump into the final trade of the night. Sean, take us away.
All right, another big swing here. And we got a 3-team deal. We've talked a lot about James Harden. This involves a James Harden sign and trade. So we hear the whispers of if he's coming back to Philly, if he wants to go to Houston. The third team that has been quietly in the mix is the Phoenix Suns. And if he does want to go to Phoenix, it will take the Sixers to get him there. So this is a sign and trade where James Harden will go to Phoenix. along with Lonzo Ball and a 2027 from the Bulls, 2027 first. Lonzo Ball, it unfortunately looks like will never play basketball again, so that is kind of eating money. So that is a favor for the Bulls to get him off. The Bulls will end up with Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, and DeAndre Ayton from the Suns, so a nice little package there. And the Sixers walk away with Chris Paul, DeMar DeRozan, Alex Caruso, and Dalen Terry. So I love Dalen Terry. I think he's awesome and a guy that's going to pop soon. Alex Caruso, a proven championship level role player there, more of the 3-and-D style. Chris Paul would replace that point guard production that we would lose in James Harden. And DeMar DeRozan is more of that guy who can go create his own shot, be a little bit of a closer. It's absolutely a little mid-range heavy. He's 100% that guy. But if these Sixers are going to swing for the fences, these are the potential pieces to get you there.
I like it, except Chris Paul is my question mark. He just can't seem to get healthy. And I would love him in this offense just full time and without the injury. But he just proves year after year that there's always an injury issue. That is a very intriguing trade, though. And I especially like it for the Suns as well. Not only do they get Harden and Ball, they acquire a first-round pick as well, which gives them more assets and or a pick to make a draft a young player. Very intriguing. What do you feel about it, Dibes?
Ironically, I think it's Dalen Terry that pushes this one over the top. I would love Dalen Terry in Philadelphia, man. That was one of my guys, as Sean knows. That would be sensational. Dude's like just got an unbelievable upside to him still. What is he, like 20 years old? Like that guy is probably younger than most draft picks. You would have Jaden Springer and Dalen Terry moving forward. Was Jaden Springer in the trade? I forget.
No, we still keep Springer. So that's a little backcourt there.
Oh my God. Like I would gush over the youth of this backcourt for so much. I'm in the minority there. Dalen Terry, Jaden Springer would be fun. So I would do this. DeMar DeRozan is a guy that I've gone back and forth on in Philadelphia like over and over and over again. He's definitely, the more I thought about it, he's definitely among the top of the list when it comes to like a Tobias move. So I would probably do this.
It's hard. It's the mid-range stuff does make me a little hesitant with DeMar, but it's you gotta, like, you're not getting a perfect player. They don't exist. So you have to kind of take a little. He does have that ability to be the guy, be the closer, take over a game, and he's shown that in Chicago. He's really been that guy, especially when he first got there. Zach LaVine has kind of taken back control a little bit, but DeMar's gone on stretches where he has been cold-blooded and a guy who's led the NBA in fourth quarter points, been in that mix for a ton. So you have to find somebody like that. I do think he's a guy that can contend like that. And yeah, it's not perfect, but this is still a deal that I think could benefit the Sixers a great deal.
A big part of this deal is just, I think Dalen Terry is going to be really legit in like 2-3 years. So it's a lot of projection. And I don't think a lot of Sixers fans will see that, but I do think Dalen Terry has a really fun upside.
Interesting. Kind of a win now and win in the future as well to cover yourself so that we don't have a tank future, which is pretty cool. Now, earlier, that's it for all our trades. That's our Maxey trade. So according to Dibes, he's just going to be so bored for the next 2 weeks. It's boring. Well, if you're that bored, you should plan a trip. And I got a trip spot for you. PhillySportsTrips.com. I would say go to Chicago at the end of the month, but they're already sold out. So why don't you book a trip to Pittsburgh right now? Pittsburgh Pirates are playing great ball. The Phillies are starting to make a run July 28th to the 31st. Go to PhillySportsTrips.com. Book that trip today. If you don't want to go to a baseball game, they got every single Eagles away and home tailgate. And if you like golf, they can take you to the Ryder Cup too. Rome and Florence, September 27th to October 6th. Go check out the Ryder Cup. Go to PhillySportsTrips.com today. The best sports trips company I know. Now, before we wrap this up, we're at 47 minutes here, but quickly, because we have to address the rumors. Dibes, you go first. Your favorite player ever, who you're so excited to hear about these rumors. Are you pumped up about Bradley Beal?
I don't believe that we went through 2-3 years of bitching and complaining about the Tobias Harris contract, and now are moving on to another guy, moving him to Philadelphia that's owed, 4 more years at $50+ million. Like, I think 1 year is making $57 million. It is the definition of insanity. I hate the move. The only way I like the Sixers in this deal is if they could find a way to wiggle a James Harden or wiggle a Tobias Harris in this and be the third team and get an asset from it. But that they can't continue to kill themselves moving forward. Like, you bring in Bradley Beal with that contract, like, it just destroys every semblance of optionality and things like that for this team moving forward. Sorry guys, I am of the ilk that Tyrese Maxey is already that guy. He's already that guy. You put in Maxey with a Nick Nurse offense that emphasizes transition offense, that wants to get out into the open court, wants to push the fast break, and you add wings to this roster. Tyrese Maxey's already ready, set, and just ready to blow up in the NBA next year. Blow up. And it just makes no sense to me that you want to add a guy like Bradley Beal, he's missed. One of your boys, Zach of Philly Sports Network, did a great article on Bradley Beal. He's missed 33% of his games over the last 4 years. So you're adding a guy with 4 more years of not playing over a quarter of the time. No thanks. It's so freaking stupid. No thanks.
He hasn't played a full season since 2018. And as you alluded to, this contract, so you're going to take 4 years of this, 43 million, 46 million, then it gets worse, then 50 million, then 53 million, and then 26-27 season, he has a player option for 57 million. He's definitely going to opt into that because he's going to be so washed at that point. But Sean, you talked about it being 70% of the cap as well. How do you feel about this trade?
Yeah, it's the contract that holds me up, and that 70% is just Beal and Embiid. That's not even acknowledging Tyrese Maxey, who's likely due for a close to, if not a true max deal.
Maxey
and then
would have to be traded, right? Like I would expect Maxey to be gone with this move.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. So I guess we can avoid that problem. But the point still being, like, I just don't think he's that guy to command that much of your cap space. There's all these limitations that come up with it when you dig that deep into the luxury tax and the second apron and all that are being brought on by this. And there's just something about, like, there's a little bit of loser energy to Bradley Beal as well. Like, we talk about it with James Harden. I certainly have. Bradley Beal's got a little bit of the same thing, and he has never been on a true winner. And there's something about a player that caliber of talent. I get it. Like, it's hard without a true roster on you, but you should be able to lift the floor of a team at least some. And he really hasn't. Throughout his entire career, there hasn't really been any sort of threat there. Even if it's like win a series, like, I would love to see it. It just hasn't. I know him and Joel are close. They both Drew Hamlin guys work under the same trainer. They got plenty of connections. I'm sure that there's going to be some phone calls about him. I'm surprised the wheels are turning so quickly on the Bradley Beal trade. But yeah, the financial aspect just completely holds me back, and I think it would be a mistake on how much future trouble the Sixers would put themselves in.
Quentin Moore checked it in. Thanks as always for listening. Well, I'll let you go, Dives. You had another point. Sorry, I cut you off.
Well, it's similar. Like, my comment's similar. Like, Clutch Sports would see the Sixers trade for a Bradley Beal. Clutch Sports is the agent for Tyrese Maxey. And they would see Bradley Beal come into Philly and be like, what's the plan here? Whereas you look at Quentin Moore's comment, do you guys want James Harden back? And maybe they do a sign and trade and build around Tyrese Maxey. I do not want James Harden back. That's just my take. I want the Sixers to find a way to build this thing organically, internally. I know it means probably taking more than 2 or 3 steps backwards in 2024, but that is the right step for this team. These people that are all on like win now mode, like, it's not the correct decision for this team moving forward. And I would not bring James Harden back. I would find out what you've got in Tyrese Maxey as a distributor, as a playmaker. I'm not saying he's a floor general. I talked about this on Trending in the AM with Phil Stiefel this morning. I don't think he's a floor general, but I think in an offense that has a lot of ball movement, the ball doesn't stop, and I think he could thrive. So Again, way more transition offense under Nick Nurse expected, and way more pieces like a Jaden Springer, a Lewis King that can get out and go. No, and that's just my take is I don't think the Sixers have any route to getting to a championship next year. I think the Nuggets are far and away a better team, and I think everything we saw from the Nuggets have put that to rest.
Mm-hmm.
You said another point you bring up with Maxey. We didn't think he was going to be a shooter so quickly either. You continue to give Maxey things we don't think he's going to be, and he proves people wrong time after time. So yeah. I agree with you. I don't know that he's got vision or a floor general to be able to do that, but who are we to not give him a chance and see how that goes?
That's what I would do. That's what I would build around Maxey.
And to that point, like I don't expect this to be what the Sixers do. I feel like there's just too much at stake and too many jobs on the line that I think they're going to take a swing. But I do agree that I think it would be a mistake depending on what the deal is and what the swing is. But I do think the right direction is there's a world where the best case scenario is taking a year to see what exactly Tyrese Maxey is. Do you need to pair him with a guy who is a true point guard? Do you need to let him just be a scorer? What is his role? And just using out Tobias Harris contract. If you allow that to fully expire and then extend Maxey, you can then walk into free agency with a full max slot and go from there. Look for a guy with more talent. There's a more talented free agent class next year. But like I said, I do expect them to take a swing, unfortunately.
I do think the best route for the Sixers to win a championship is for Tyrese Maxey to go from here to here as a playmaker. That is the most realistic, him and Embiid, the most realistic take. That's my opinion. And giving him that chance under an X's and O's kind of a guy like that can make adjustments and see it and call it out when it's not happening under Nick Nurse, that's what I would roll with. Because I think the biggest path is obviously Joel Embiid getting the stick out of his ass in the playoffs and doing what he needs to do. But we just went through all of it. Tyrese Maxey's only 22 years old, something he's almost there, guys. Like he's still like among the best of the packages we just discussed, and I still think there's untapped ceiling, untapped upside to what he can bring. So for me, surround Embiid and Maxey with wings, two-way level guys, and let's frickin' roll.
If Harden comes back on the 1 year deal or a 2 year multi-year deal in the $35-40 million range, I would bring him back. I don't think we're as far off as the sky is falling as everyone's making it out to be. I think we were 5 minutes away, and I think under Nick Nurse and some shooting that you can add with the cap space we do have, depending on that contract, we could contend. Would we beat the Nuggets? I don't know. I think we put up a better fight than the Heat, though, matchup-wise. So I think we would have had the scoring to at least match them in games. I just would like to see this roster with Nick Nurse and an actual offense as opposed to just give the ball to Embiid, just give the ball to Harden, give the ball to whoever, and have actual plays run. But that's enough for tonight. Great show on Maxey. Before we go, Sean, first, any plugs, any where we can find you?
I'll be dropping a podcast tomorrow with Brian Tuparic, talking a little bit about the Sixers cap situation, stuff like that. So make sure to check that out. I'll be recording that in about an hour, so I'm excited to get all educated on that as well. That deep dive. You can follow me on Twitter at Sean_Bernard1. Check out Pick Swap Media, where you can find that podcast, and check out Fox 102.5 The Gambler as well for me popping on there and a bunch of other good stuff.
And Sean, and follow him on Twitter. Just follow all his Sixer stuff, and you become so educated on everything going on at all times. Seriously, right now, if you're listening to this, go on your Twitter app, go to @Sean_Barnard1, and just hit the follow button. And I would even hit the notification button. Just check it out for a week, 1 week, 2 days, and you'll be like, dude, this is a follow. Dimes, you're doing everything. He's another follow at Mr. Crockpot. Go follow him. Sixers and Eagles. Just follow. He's got a ton of great content, great takes. Dimes, where can we find you?
Mr. Crockpot, before I lose my voice again for the third time in this show. Friday, we are doing the top 10 prospects in the ACC for the 2024 NFL draft. we did the Big Ten and the SEC, which is loaded. ACC is also loaded, man. Really fun conference, and your boy Jeremiah Trotter Jr. will be gushing about him. So very fun stuff. Me and Sean have already been talking about getting going on the Sixers Summer League and previewing the roster. We should see a roster announcement next week. So expect that to drop. That'll be a really fun show. I can't wait to talk about that. And dude, I legit have like 2,000 words on Sixers free agent targets. Just James Harden, make your announcement already, because we don't know. We don't know what to do, but I'm ready to go. I've got like 10 free agent targets, like MLE, kind of like exception guys that I think would be great fits. Ready to go. And it means nothing until James Harden makes that choice. So be on the lookout for that. Again, if you love the NFL draft, I've covered every position in the draft already before this season gets started. Birds of the Roundtable is on Monday nights. We have a new co-host, and he is a big get. We just made that. New co-host coming for Birds of the Roundtable on Monday nights for the Eagles, just talking everything birds. And we did a show on the Eagles where we created NFL Blitz 7v7 rosters with current and past players. I just dropped the first round of that. It's between Mitch and LJ of the Kelly Green Hour. Mitch's squad even has Derek Barnett on that team. So go vote for LJ. I don't understand. So if you love the Eagles, go to our channel, vote for your favorite NFL Blitz Eagles squad. And the second round will come out tomorrow. 2 teams, I'll be in that as well. So that's about it.
Nice. And you can find me tonight, 8:30 p.m. right here on Edge of Philly Sports, our EOP live show. You can find me at FreddyBurns_ on Twitter. And stay tuned right after this. Right now, 7 o'clock, Philly Press Box Radio is going to start. Any Flyers fans out there? The Flyers have made some moves. They made some big coaching moves, some contract moves, and Philly Press Box Radio will have Sam Carchidi on. I'm actually excited about the Flyers a little bit with the moves, what they've been actually making. Huge trades. Check out Philly Press Box. I'll have Sam Carchidi to talk about all that. I can't believe that you talked about. We had to, Mitch. We had to. Maury's talking about him. We had to. We didn't want to. We kind of feel dirty about it, though. I think Dives low-key wants to do it with that Pelicans deal. We didn't want to do it, but we had to. But for Chris Dives and Sean Barnard, I'm Freddie Burns. We will be back next week, Party on Broad at 6 o'clock. See you next week.